It's 7 o'clock, we'd like to make a start. Great to see you all here this evening when you could be mackerel fishing down at Long Regis, or you're cooking out at County Parish in Episcopi, or you could be doing all sorts of things, but your passion for Huish Episcopi and Langport brings you here this evening, which is laudable. Have we still got music in the background? Yeah, you could be doing all sorts of things, but your passion for Huish Episcopi and Langport brings you here this evening, which is laudable. What is that music? It sounds like a bad version of Tubular Bells. That was 1972, 1973, Mike Oldfield by Rangers Soon. I wasn't just guessing. Are we okay now? Can I start now? Thank you very much. For those that don't know me, I'm Rupert and I've been invited to be the impartial chair of this evening's discussions. I'm a resident of Sutton, where I've lived since 1973. I've been a parish councillor on Sutton Parish Council since I was 21. And for those of you that have got the maths, that is 43 years. I was the district councillor for the Turnhill Ward on South Somerset District Council from 1999 to 2011, and I was also chair of the Langport Area Forum, which was some ridiculous quango set up by the old South West Regional Development Agency to make the very best of Langport. It tried, and we tried, and lots of things actually came out of that, spawned from that. Gerard's in the room. I worked with Gerard Tucker very closely on that all those years ago. It's really weird when you say to something that's a quarter of a century ago, but that's exactly what it was. You were, indeed you were. I played for Huish and Langport Cricket Club, and I played against them many times, and I was a member of Langport District Young Farmers as well. So going to Sutton when I was 12, I've been here ever since. I'm nearly local. I realise if you go and drink in Eli's, I still wouldn't be quite local, but jolly nearly. So it's a pleasure to be invited this evening to chair this debate, and more like a discussion. But to give a bit of background, the community governance review for the two parishes is taking place at the moment. As you know, Somerset Council are leading that work as part of the community governance review. They're not just actually looking at Huish Episcopi and Langport, but a number of communities around the county and a number of divisions around the county as well. So it's quite a widespread piece of work. Governance review with the aim of ensuring that they're not just actually looking at Huish Episcopi and Langport, but a number of communities around the county and a number of divisions around the county as well. So it's quite a widespread piece of work.
To tell you what the advantages are in my mind for those in Langport. Yes, please, could you put your hands up if you're from Langport? Well, yours is definitely a yes. Can I put your hands up if you're from Huish? Right, well this is questionable. Why is it questionable? Because I haven't got confidence that the way that this is going is going to be for the benefit of the Huish Episcopi parishioners. I can't find one advantage for it. I wish I could. I really do. To me, it's quite sad, because if you're going to join two parties together, it's important that there is good for one side and good for the other. And in this case, I cannot say that I can see anything good for Huish. I can only see for Langport. And all the time, I've raised this on a number of occasions, you know, wanted this to come together. I thought with the JCC that we'd actually start to come together. But unfortunately on the JCC, there are three which are very pro Landlord, and there's only me as Huish. So I don't seem to get my points over. Although I've written papers and given information on the housing, have we discussed what the way forward in housing? Because all the housing is going to be Huish Episcopi. No. What about employment? I've been on about employment for ages. And there's nothing on that. So, to be honest, I don't see that the team we've got is going to be good for you. But if it does go through, then what I suggest you all do is from Huish, put yourselves up and get on council, because I don't think your interest in the future will be met.
Thank you. Very good. Sean, fire away.
So I spent some of the last week at Glastonbury. Lots of people in the field. And I started thinking, what would it be like? So you've got a big field and lots of people in it, and someone comes along and builds an absolutely mad fence across the middle of the field, okay? And it goes up a bit, there's a big loop there, and it goes round there, and it makes absolutely no sense at all. There is something in human nature that will nonetheless make the people who are on one side of the fence start thinking and talking about the people who are on the other side of the fence. And they will start sort of differentiating and saying that they're a bit different from over there, and they're a bit different. It's the way that the two councils work together now. John just mentioned something called the JCC, which is our joint council. It works pretty well. It's quite slick. The first meeting of that I went to took place in the Memorial Field, and the Langport lot arrived only to be accused of being tree huggers by the Huish Episcopi lot. They were sort of, they'd fallen into this habit of this fence thinking. There's one side and there's another side. All we're asking you to do is imagine that silly fence is just taken away again. It's no longer there. We are back to being one parish council for the one community that we are around here. That is the nature of the change that we're trying to suggest. John says there are no advantages. He can't see any advantages. I can see lots of advantages. From the point of view of the way people deal with us from the outside, we will then be a community the size of Sutton or Martin. We will get much better answers from Somerset Council and the other people we have to deal with, because we'll be a bigger community speaking with one voice. From the point of view of how we deal with each other, the school needed 10 grand out of our Section 106 money for a library. That came as a proposal to the JCC. That was then proposed back to each council. One of the councils wanted to amend the conditions. That had to go back to the JCC. It then has to go back out again. It's ludicrous. Well, the benefit from how we will deal with each other, it'll be much slicker, much faster, necessarily cheaper in due course. So it'll be like that. But the fundamental benefit is the no fence benefit. We will speak with one voice for one community through one parish council. Thank you.
And finally, the only resident who is not on any of the councils I've asked to speak last. Ryan, over to you.
Yeah, hi all. As Rupert said, I'm sure many of you recognise and know me. I feel like I'm speaking at a bit of a disadvantage, not being the only non-councillor here, so I'll probably speak, hopefully, for more of the people in the area. I think many of us are interested in the idea, as was proposed in the question, that was sent out. We've not received any pros and cons about it. We don't know financial implications. It's not gone through the letterboxes of anyone. It seems quite ludicrous in many ways that people in Huish don't have more information about this. I do speak to many people that come in the pub. I think there's a whole plethora of people that live in the parish that won't be here tonight. They have families, they'd have to have babysitters like me to come out. They do not want an increased bill. That's not really been talked about as well. All of these things are going to matter to them, and it should go out in the mail. There should be a referendum. If everyone says yes, great. There's no problem. I don't know why we're withholding information about the due processes that should happen for this to go through. So simply put, I'm not against it per se, but I'm speaking on behalf of Huish because I don't feel that we know enough and have been represented fairly. That's really all I have to say.
Okay, before I throw it open, I think there's a couple of questions that have come out from speakers that I would like a little bit of clarification on. So this lack of information, a perceived lack of information, how valid is that?
I'm not sure how valid that is. It started with an open meeting across the road before we did our survey, which was called Held, which was about 2 years ago. We've had another meeting like this about 8 months ago that was instigated by Greg Gadd, and we're having this meeting tonight. The process that Somerset Council, and we've got 2 representatives of the Governance Committee who will be looking over this and voting on it here tonight. The process has been published. There have been 2, we're currently undergoing the second round of consultation. They had a first round of consultation, all published, all accessible.
Has there been, is there a document that I, as a layperson from 3 miles down the road, could go and find a document that says, in somebody's opinion of course, these are the pros and these are the cons, advantages and disadvantages of residents of one or both parishes?
When we went for the, to trigger the governance review, which we did 9 months ago, we put through every letterbox in Langport and Huish the form to trigger that review. And on that there was an estimation of the cost, there was what it would involve, there was the nature of the process. That was all on there. So, I mean, if those who were against it had wanted to publish and be more active on social media about that, that would have been up to them. But I'm not, I think it's been a long, slow, very steady, carefully mapped out process, and it has followed the rules.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I have to disagree on that. I mean, specifically the question that was asked was not about merging, it was about exploring the advantages and disadvantages.
That was in the survey, not the
referendum.
So again, I mean, obviously as councillors, you're party to every bit of information that's gone out. I'm simply saying that as many of the parishioners, they need something through their letterbox, not on social media, not on anything else, discussing a seismic change in their parish. To go along with it, the councillors also said that 80% were for it. They were for the question saying that they want to know more. That isn't 80% of the people saying they want to merge. They're looking for more information. So again, it's not clear. That's not, and again, it's a lane that I don't think that's coming across accurately in the parish.
Okay. And finally, John, you said you don't know what the advantages are. What do you think the disadvantages are?
Well, I think the advantages are all for the residents of Langport.
What are the disadvantages?
The disadvantages for Huish Episcopi is, number one, that they will lose their control of the very sort of adequate amount of money they've got in their pot. They will.
But that's excuse me. But that's a council. That's a very internal thing. That 9 people sitting around chairs in a village hall once a month. That isn't actually impacting your whole community.
Well, okay. We.
So what's the disadvantages?
The disadvantages.
For the residents.
Well, because we don't know, for a start, what the policy is going to be about building in the area.
Yeah.
We don't know what the policy is going to be about employment in the area. Certainly, the precept is going to go up. It's already stated that for a band D, it's going to go up by £60 a year as a start. What extra advantages are we going to get in the community?
That's okay. I just want to pull it. If in opening statements things come out and I think, well, actually, we don't have the detail, you'll explain yourself further, that's what we'll do. I'm now going to open it up to the floor, because it's your meeting, not mine or theirs. Who'd like to ask a question or an observation first? Yes, Jenny.
Can you just clarify what services are Landlord is in control of that Huish benefits from, and what services Huish provides that Landlord currently benefits from? Can I have a sort of...
Yeah, I think there's a further question.
Yeah.
What services our community is going to be expected to run because our county councils stink?
Yeah.
And that's a
So
they're joined.
some of them are run by Landlord and some by Huish. So at the moment, Langport residents benefit from some of the ones that are run by Huish Council and vice versa. And I just like quite a clear-cut list of those two so that we can see
Okay.
what we already benefit
John,
from. We have been-
what services does Huish Episcopi Parish Council provide for its residents?
The main one is the lensman. Is doing the various things like mowing the grass around the roundabout, cutting back hedges and various other things like that. We've got the allotments, of course, in our area. So
Is that the Pipsbury ones?
One?
Is that the Pipsbury ones?
That's right.
Yeah.
We got those, so we work on that. We also look after the War Memorial and make sure that there's the right flag flying there at the right times. But that's basically it as far as viewers are concerned.
So Lakesman, allotments, War Memorial.
Okay.
Okay?
Is there not also a contribution towards the cricket?
When it comes to contributions, a lot of the old precinct goes actually towards Landlord, and that's done for years.
Okay. Julia, you wanted to add to this answer, I think.
Well, I was going to point out that actually Huish contributes at least 2/3 of the funding that is required to run many of the things that are based in Langport, as well as things like the Memorial Field. So it's skewed. We have a larger precept than Langport and a large population, so we contribute 2/3 to 1/3 of what all those places get. We help to, we put money into the town hall to help replace the windows. We've helped with the Bridgeway Hall requirements and so on. So we do actually work together, but we have to have separate votes and separate looks at funding in order to do that, but we do. So Huish residents enjoy the services in Langport, but they do actually also pay for them.
Okay, let's come back to Jane's question. So we now know Huish has a Lakesman, I'm going to get it wrong in a minute, has allotments, has a War Memorial, and 2/3 of its budget is centralised between the two parishes to be spent primarily within the Langport area. Langport parish. Okay. Sean, could you give me some bullet points of the services provided by Langport Town Council directly for its community?
It's a long list. It starts with a precinct and maintaining that. We've got the markets working again, and they're working very well. We've got our youth services, but Huish contribute towards those. The record of Huish contributing towards services that Langport runs is good and currently generous.
Keep the bullet points going, Sean,
I'm not
please.
grateful, not ungrateful.
Keep the bullet points going.
Okay, there's all of Cocklemore and the River Project and the fact that that's become a big success. You see how busy that is with everybody sitting out there. There's obviously the main problem at the moment that we're devoting the most amount of time to is sorting out the car parking, which is difficult. We've got options, but it's difficult. We're running a town, in short, and it's quite a busy one, and it, compared to some others around here, is a thriving one. But it is a little hard to run a town when you only have the income of 321 ratepayers.
So who runs the cemetery?
We do. We run the cemetery as well.
Anything else I might have missed?
Toilets. Yes.
Well, the precinct toilets, absolutely. Yeah. We also have our own lakesman, yeah.
Okay.
So it's quite a long list.
Does that answer your question, Jamie?
Yeah.
Well, it's quite interesting. They weren't all sure exactly what they run, and I find that quite ironic. Another observation. Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm
Sorry, I don't know your name. So.
my name's Keith, so I'm the ex-Huish councillor. My concern with this process is not the way it ends up, it's the process that's going on. I just can't get my head around it. We had a questionnaire with 500 people onto out of 3,500 in these two parishes, and yet it seems to hold right sway. And it shouldn't. It's only 14% of the people who live here. And I think that's a real worry, and I'm not sure that it's good governance to make decisions on that sort of information. I think it needs a proper questionnaire, and there's lots of rules about it. Lots of rules. The gunning report will tell what you can and can't do. There's people with gunning report that reports how you're supposed to do these things, and there's other things like the Equality Act. The Equality Act says that everyone in society has a right to be able to answer these questionnaires. Now, the questionnaire we had went in letterboxes. It said you had to take it back to the town hall, and they had us wrong. Nobody did that. I just think it needs a quick shake-up and a complete rerun of how it's been organised. And if it comes out, I think, as Ryan said, if it comes out as, yes, we want to put them together, fine, I'll be very happy with that. But at the moment, I just don't think the process is right. In fact, it's wrong. Thank you.
How did you get
Can I
to
just
answer it?
You got a question, Jenny?
I just wondered how you get, if they put the questionnaire out and they got 500 responses, how would you get more than 500 responses? What would you do differently to get more responses?
Can I speak in? Okay. As I understand it, they were put in letterboxes, and it wasn't on the social media, as I remember. The questions were very, I don't think the questions were right.
Sorry, I need to clarify this. The questionnaire was online, okay? It was online. It wasn't put through letterboxes. It was online. You could fill it out in the library if you wanted to. And more active, we have 3 like that. It was really, really small. But most of it was online, okay? So that was how that was done. What then followed that went through every single letterbox was the request if people did want to sign up to the governance review. And that's what went through every letterbox. So they're two different things that over time we've obviously blended into one, but they were 2 separate exercises.
So are you as councillors happy with the process up till now and the decisions you're
Well, what we then did was both councils had big debates about this, Keith. Both councils, and we invited people along, and people did come along to the council meetings, and then both councils voted in favour. Langport unanimously, Huish Episcopi 6-3. Okay. So it doesn't feel like there's been a failure of consultation here.
Let me put the question to Parish someone else. Are you happy that the way that's been processed is good and fair and right?
You've been part of the decision-making process, John. I understand.
Not really. That's what I'm saying. I don't think the case is being made. I think we've lost a lot of opportunities where we could have welded the 2 councils together. And there are still 3 on my council that have not been convinced that this is in the best interest of Huish Episcopi. Now, had we 18 months ago started to talk, all right, what are the advantages and disadvantages? Great. But the more important thing was, how are we going to work together in the future for the total benefit of Huish Episcopi and Landlord? Because if you look at the website, in my statement, my 23 years has always been in the best interest of Landlord and Huish Episcopi. So I've never been 100% against one council. But what I am for is if it's going to happen, then before it happens, those 2 councils have got to sort out what are the objectives for the future and what are the advantages and disadvantages of coming together. And I will not be convinced until that happens.
I wouldn't suggest, just a sort of independent layperson here, that it would make logical sense that if the merger happened, you should have a neighbourhood plan straight away. And that was set out, all of those policies that you talk about, where employment sites are. And I was on the district council.
Do you know why? Because Fry's didn't build it. And then we got into our council came a letter from the solicitors in Bath to say they've been marketing these for the last 18 months and there was no interest. There was a gentleman up in Wigan who had been down and said he wanted one of those business units, and he was told they're not going to do anything until they've sold them all. And it was a total con by the developer. Right. It was one of the worst things that has happened. And we could do nothing about it.
I will leave another phrase with you. The past is for reference, not residence.
Exactly.
And that's very important. Ryan, I would like to ask you, because the gentleman here brought up the question about whether you feel there's been enough consultation, are you happy with it, what else should have happened to have allowed residents to make a more considered view?
I'd happily say that, as my role at work, I speak to a lot of people, and not enough people know about it, truthfully. They don't know about the pros and cons, they don't know that their council tax is going to go up. They should know that before they vote about it. They feel like it's a fait accompli, even though, you know, due to sunset guidelines we should be having a referendum on it, which they say now we might not have. We've still never had the pros and cons that was requested in it, and the original question was vague. It wasn't, do you want to merge? It was, do you want to know the pros and with advantages and disadvantages? So I think clearly it's always been a little bit inaccurate. Or, you know, it needs to be clearer. Just ask the question, and they will all reply.
Sean, I've got we're going to come to this gentleman here in the front.
Hi, Bill Person. The question that I have is, it's been alluded to by members of the panel, the precept is going to increase if this happens. So I would like to get some clarity around that. Is that a hair, a red herring, or is there going to be some change to happen? So I'd like some.
The question from the front is the council tax going to go up primarily for residents of Huish Episcopi? I think you were aiming on, and if so, by how much? Julia first, and then I'll ask you.
It probably will, because we have to balance who pays what. And so we as a resident of Huish Episcopi, we don't pay as much because there are far more of us, and we keep getting more, which means that our revenue increases, whereas Langport is static because you cannot build in Langport. But actually, if you look at the amount that you actually pay per year, if it were going to go up £60 a year for Huish residents, that's just over £1 a week.
How much did it come down for Langport residents?
It won't. It won't. It'll become parity. And I am hoping, we haven't had any guidance on this, but I am hoping that should the joint decision be made, that we should join in 2027, that Somerset Council will provide an officer or officers to help us organise that, so there will be ways of doing that. Now, whether it all goes up at once or it'll be gradually, don't know. You can bet your bottom dollar Somerset Council put theirs up a hell of a lot more, because your local precept is a minuscule amount of what you're paying in total council tax.
Okay, Sean, would you like to?
Just to take on from what Julie was saying, so that you get a council tax bill every year if you're in a Schedule D house. I was talking to a gentleman earlier, I won't point him out, but he's in a Schedule G house. That's considerably worse. But if you're like 67% of people in Langport or Jewish, it's Schedule D or lower. Your council tax bill is about 2,200 that goes to Somerset each year, and then you have your precept, which is about 100 quid, just a bit less than 100 quid in Jewish, and a bit more than 300 quid in Langport. That goes over and above that and is billed at the same time. It's called a precept because it's added to the bit that goes to Somerset Council. In terms of whether one would go up and one would go down, one would go down, the other one would go up. The fact is, both councils are carrying quite significant reserves. Per resident in Langport, we're carrying, over and above the cost of running Langport until next April, we've got about a £300 surplus per resident. Per resident in Huish, they're carrying slightly less, about 200 quid per resident. There's obviously a few more residents, a lot more residents in Huish, so that's a lot more cash, but it's less per resident, per ratepayer. Now, who and how that is spent is entirely the decision of that council once it's elected, if there's a merger. That is their job, and if you want to stand to be a councillor, or if you want to campaign for or against things, you have to talk to them about that. But if we work on the basis of it costs about just a bit less than 100 grand a year to run Huish, it actually costs about 120 grand a year to run Langport. Add that together, 220, divide that by the number of ratepayers, you end up with this figure for a Schedule D house of about 60 quid more a year. This is why that figure is being bandied about. If we changed nothing, there were no savings, you decided not to spend any more, you kept it all on a level playing field, then the residents of Huish would be paying a little bit more than £1 a week extra for the changes that we're envisaging. That's why that figure has been used. But it is not something we can set or promise or swear by now, because it's up to that next council when it's formed. They will set their precepts.
Precepts at parish level are really interesting things. Along Sutton, we've just undertaken 3 quite significant community infrastructure improvements, and we took the decisions on a percentage basis to increase council tax on parish precept by 85%. And I'm thinking, how the hell do you ever sell that to the 800 residents and like 400 properties in the village? But if you set out how you're going to spend the money and where you're going to spend the money, only one person came back and questioned it. And I was absolutely flabbergasted because, you know, we all get our council tax bill and it says how much the police have put it up, how much the fire have put it up, how much the council, parish, there's a whole list of people. And you've got the Long Sutton Parish Council, 85%. But actually, the 85% still wasn't a hell of a lot of money. It was 4 quid a week. And people suddenly realised for 4 quid a week, we've got new tennis courts for 4 quid a week, we've got a new play area for 4 quid a week, we've got a new sports pavilion or refurbished sport. And you justify your expenditure. And I think going back to having a plan, if there is one council, I would think both councils should, they don't have a plan for what they do now. So they don't have a plan, they say, well, we must have a plan. We don't have a plan for what you're doing now. Have a plan and you sell your plan to a resident. But the council tax element of the total bill for your parishes is comparatively small. I don't know exactly what they are, but I know what the whole bill looks like. Madam, you've been very patient.
Very stupid question, but can you tell me what proportion, or if any, of people in Langport, how much does that affect their bill every year? Because we've got all these amenities. Do we pay more because we've got the amenities than living within that town? Rather than the towns that are outside. Do we pay for that privilege because we've got all these amenities?
Well, I thank you very much for maintaining a toilet in Langport that I use. But you can come to Long Sutton and use ours if you like.
Are we charged accordingly because we live near all these?
I think every town that offers amenities, you have a hinterland.
Yeah.
And it ain't Huish, it's much
Because we've got
away.
amenities.
Yeah.
Unless we...
But I want to all break up and more. I want
But
to
Huish is using all our amenities.
That is the issue. That is the issue.
Huish is paying 2/3 of their precepts.
And there are amenities. You know,
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
are already paying, we discussed that.
So, what
Yeah.
will happen to all this extra funding? All the £60 per household?
But it might not be.
What would be probably will?
No, but if the status quo, you've been told, if it's the status quo, it will be.
It will. And I'm confident of the economies of scale. So why do we need more money?
It's called inflation.
The current position is as I think this lady was highlighting, that the amenities that are paid for in Langport but used by people of Huish are not being paid for by the people of Huish. So they have to go. You don't pay for the toilet, you don't pay for the precinct, you don't pay for any of this. At the moment what's happening is Langport is paying for an enormous number of amenities that are being used by everyone that only the ratepayers for Langport are paying for. That is out of kilter, that is out of balance. And it gets worse and worse because every time there's new houses built in this area, they're always in Huish. They're always in, like the next 100 houses that are going in on Sutton Road, the next 200 after that in the same field. All these expansions are always in Huish. So little Langport, with only 321 ratepayers, is having to pay for things like the precinct, things like that, without any support from Huish.
That's totally untrue.
How's that untrue?
Totally untrue.
You pay for the youth services, you pay...
Your town hall, which is not sort of controlled by you, because it's set up as a trust, has had £10,000, £10,000, £7,000 of Huish Episcopi ratepayers put towards it. If it comes to the youth club, money from Huish Episcopi goes into the youth club. If it comes to the sports field, we pay 2/3 of the cost of that. So there's a huge amount of Huish Episcopi money that goes to support all of those amenities in Langport.
I was talking about the toilets.
I've got a lady here that wants that. I just want to ask you, John, with the additional housing that's happened in Huish over the years, what has the Parish Council done with the community infrastructure levy, the Section 106 the developers cough up and give to the county council, and then 15% of it comes to the parish? Where's that money gone?
That money was locked in because although the money was paid, the 106 money goes into a pot. That could only be accessed by the agreement of both Langport Town and Huish Episcopi.
You haven't answered the question. Where is it? So, what's happened to it over the years?
Well, there was a sum for the development on Field Road of some 47,000, which was supposed to be spent on a new community facility. At the first JCC, Joint Council Committee, the vote was put forward, though we've been looking at trying to get a community facility for Landlord and Huish Episcopi residents for the last 20 years. The decision there was it wasn't going to go ahead. They did not want to press ahead. And decision that was made, I believe, so that money could be spent on the town hall and Midway Hall in Huish, and that's what
For those of you that aren't aware, every developer that has a housing development, from one house upwards, makes a contribution called a community infrastructure levy. It goes to the county council, and 15% of it should come back to the parish to be spent on community facilities. If you have a neighbourhood plan, which I talked about earlier, you get 25% of it back. So if all of the housing is done in one community and not the other community, you can just see how little lopsided these windfalls are. And that's why I asked what's happened to them. No, you've been very patient, I'm sorry. And then we've got a lady at the back.
Sorry, I was just before.
Oh, okay.
John was saying how much money contributes to Langport, therefore illustrating the point that we could be one community. Aren't we all honest for doing that much?
Thank you.
And wouldn't that be a good thing to just officially make it like that, rather than carry on being piecemeal?
Good observation, thank you. You've been very patient, thank you.
Well, I was just going to say the one thing that...
nice and close.
The one thing that we're not talking about is the differential between the combined precepts of Huish Episcopi and Langport
And, for example, the precept of Sutton, Martock, South Hesitant, Rupert, I'm sure you know these figures. The combined precept of Langport and Huish Episcopi, if we joined this year, would be £217,000. Now, I can assure you that Langport on its own has always been, and my view is that together we could have probably, shared some of the pain, but we did do it. But I think I'm right in saying, and I'm going to look at a fellow Somerton councillor here, to say that Somerton has almost 3 times as much as Langport and Huish combined. Now, if Langport and Huish want to become a progressive, modernising community, then it's got to actually stop arguing about these small sums of money, and I speak as a Huish Bandy resident, less than a pint at East at the moment, but we've just got to stop doing that, and we've got to grow up and be bigger and actually look at how Sutton, Martock, South Petherton have all increased their funding so they can all do a lot more for their community.
Yeah,
I only want to answer that. I don't disagree, but I'm just going to object to using pub as an example because that's discretionary income and this is a tax. I think they're very different. If you say to someone, you are getting taxed.
I'll say the black swan.
No, I don't mean that. It's unfair. That's how people spend their money. It's different to a tax.
Yeah.
And it's a little unfair to say it's the same.
Okay. Good point. Julia, you wanted to add, and then I'll come back to you, Madam.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Val said about growing and being, that we will be much better together. The point is that it will be a totally new council. And if you have issues with how things are done now, then for goodness sake, put yourself up for election. For us, we are getting on now, and we need new blood, as well as new ideas, more new ideas. We need more people. If Huish Episcopi residents don't like, there are twice as many Huish Episcopi residents as there are Langport, at least. There's probably more, isn't it? Yeah, matters to me. So, more Huish Episcopi residents can put themselves up for election, and all Huish Episcopi residents as well as Langport residents will be entitled to vote for who they want to sit on the parish council, the new parish council, and if you want to be on, make sure you've got lots of Huish Episcopi residents, so you can skew it that way. But you will then, as a council, whoever we are, you are, have complete control over the money and all the facilities in the whole area, and be able to administer them in a more economical and sensible way. You haven't got to make one decision, and then it's got to be made by another 2 councils and come back and just do it. And we balance books and so on. There'll be 1 book, 1 people, 1 council.
And I think I'll come back to the guy in the blue shirt there. It may well be that the council tax doesn't go up if the use of that 240,000, if my math was right, is done wisely. There will only be 1 clerk, 1 assistant, or 1 administration instead of 2. There will be other savings, no doubt, on insurance and things like that. So I know that if it happens, it won't be a mess like there is at County Hall at the moment, where they weren't actually brave enough to make the savings. They're there to be made. So I'm not as pessimistic as you are, sir.
For the next several years, I think we cut our hair, covering the council's tax and stay the same up and down. We're getting more money out down that line.
And also, it's going down 6% this year.
They've been very limited in what they can do to go up, haven't they? The council tax for the Somerset Council has been limited to 5.9% for the last period of years, and then before that it was limited to, what was it, 1%, 2% a year? It was absolutely strangled. So we as parishes, like Sutton, like Langport, like here, like Long Sutton, we are having these extra jobs propped onto us by Somerset Council who can no longer afford to do this. So we exist in a time where we're having to take on some responsibility. The biggest one recently for Langport has been waste paper bins. Now you wouldn't think much, they're just those waste bins by the moor and so on, but that's 18 grand next year to get all those empty. It just adds up. Now that used to be done by South Somerset Council, it's not anymore. We've got to do that ourselves. So we exist in a time when that's happening, but the point I think Rupert just stressed, those choices will have to be made, whether it's some glorious, fabulous, progressive new council like Val wants, or something a bit more sedate and careful and watching its budget closely. That's what you'll be voting for when you vote for the new council, and that's a decision we'll all make together, and those people with it will be there. They will then set a budget, they will then set a precept. That's what's going to happen in the future. I'm not even sure we're arguing about that. I think we're just arguing about whether we can do that better as two, perhaps, sources of friction next to each other, or we can do that as one unit. And I absolutely believe we can do that better as one unit.
I think listening to the meeting, Sean, it's not quite as simple as that, because there are some in the room who feel that the pros and cons haven't been articulated well enough yet to make the decision that you've already made. And I think it would be wise as a community to have those written down in a very short space of time, so people know what is going to happen or might happen. Yes, sir.
So, Arvin Harris from Huish Episcopi Parish Council. Rupert, you mentioned earlier on about a neighbourhood plan, and I mentioned this at the last meeting that we had at the similar format at the Langport Arms. Now, Huish Episcopi Parish Council was given the go-ahead by the old South Somerset District Council back in December 2020 to go ahead with a neighbourhood plan. Now this would answer some of the queries that John raised about planning for houses, industry, businesses and so on and so forth. I kind of led that project, and in one of my conversations, several conversations I had with the then South Somerset planners, they said, why are you doing this? Surely you should be doing it with Langport. You are one community, you're all the same people, you're all the same place, and that's what we should be doing.
Okay. You've been very patient. I'm sorry, I've got somebody to jump in.
I just wanted to backtrack you were saying about the litter and everything. We've got drains. Val has created a wonderful riverside park. There's people paddleboarding, canoeing. We've got wonderful cafes now. They're all doing well because of the riverside park and wheelchair access. All this needs maintaining. And when I get up in the morning, our back garden goes onto the car park. We can't afford to constantly have the bins. The litter is massive now in the car park. And to keep it nice for everybody who's enjoying it, we have to pay. And most of the residents that back onto there end up every morning picking up all the litter and putting it in their bins or putting it in a carrier bag. The drains at the bottom of our garden are growing weeds out of them now because all the water runs down and they're not being cleared out and cleaned. So then we have great big huge puddles in the far corner of the car park. That needs seeing to all the time because it causes muddy, slippy for the people getting out of their cars. Their feet are getting covered in sludgy mud, where the leaves are all rotted down in the autumn. You know, all that needs maintaining. And everyone's enjoying the lovely Landlord now, which I am. I feel like I'm on my holidays. But we've got to pay for it, we can't afford it. They've cut back on the people. There used to be a man who came around all the time, picking things up. Now we don't have that, we can't afford it. We have to cut back on things that aren't imperative.
We are, however, in the process of installing bins that are twice the size. It's still not doing it. Yeah, we have to do more.
Yes, we provided free parking as well for everyone to come in and shop.
Come to Peter, please.
Hi.
Yeah, you're on.
I just wanted to ask, I've So it's Langport Town Council and Huish Episcopi Parish Council. Would the new joint council be a parish council? Or what's the difference between a parish council and a town council?
There is one difference between a parish council and a town council. That is that the leader of a town council can, if he wishes to, call himself the mayor. That's the only difference. In every other term, or she, or other, they can be called a mayor. Other than that, they are legally identical entities.
Somerton and Nartok are nearly the same size. Somerton is a town council. Nartok refuses to be a town council and has remained a parish council. And it's their choice.
They didn't want a mayor.
They didn't want a mayor. Well, they didn't want Patrick Palmer being a mayor. I can't really say that. I've known Patrick a very long time, so I can choose him in that absence. Any other observations? Who else has got something, anything fresh they'd like to bring up? Anybody feel we haven't covered a particular area that we should have done? Yes, sir, please share.
Hi, my name is Kevin Clark. A bit more wide, if we join both parishes together as one, will that give us more power to fight South Somerset District Council when they're budget, when they're proposing more houses to be built in the area?
Well, frankly, South Somerset District Council is no more, so you've just got to fight with Somerset Council. If you had a neighbourhood plan, the answer is yes.
Because I remember the South Somerset structure plan.
Yep.
In there it quoted that we have small enclaves of houses being built of 6 to 8 residents, not 100. So they're completely ignoring their own Somerset structure plan. So
the record
needs to keep reminding them they're not following their own plan.
The record of that happening is a poor one, I'm afraid. We currently have a system by which developers largely get to build the developments that make them the most money. That's it.
But you're asking the wrong guy because he hasn't got any land in Langport. These are the guys that Huish have got the land.
I can tell you.
These are the guys with all the land.
I can tell you I've been the guy that's been looking at the planning over the last 20 odd years. We in Huish Episcopi had, under the 2006-2028 plan, we had to have 374 houses built with that plan. Currently, we've got, and built or in the phase of being built, 505. With a further 100 houses that are going to be put on the Langport Somerton Road, taking us to 605. That actually would take us to the level of the new revised plan, which was 2018-2036, which then said that what we had was fire, but we'll have another 100 houses on the top of it. So at this current point in time, we have met the 2036 plan. Is that the end? I doubt it.
But to answer your question directly, which we've got politicians here, they struggle to do that. To answer your question directly, if there, you are all politicians because you, except Ryan, he's not.
I'm not.
If you have a neighbourhood plan, you have much more influence over your planning authority, wherever you are in the country, not just here. And that's why I would really, if a new council is created for the two areas, I would strongly advise you have a neighbourhood plan. And it's a great time to do it because you'll have fresh councillors, because some of the old fellows will say, I'm not interested, I don't want to do it. Fresh ideas, fresh thoughts, and you know what you want for the widest area.
Because we need to improve the infrastructure.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We've got to wait 3 weeks now for the telephone appointments to be done.
And they're sure they'll see you today. Sorry, I don't want to be harsh, but I won't criticise.
We actually have one of the best surgeons.
I won't criticise.
It may be that you've had a poor experience, sir, but there are an awful lot of people in Sutton transferring to Langport. Langport surgery is, I mean, they struggle like every surgery does, but they do a better job of struggling than most, I have to say.
Your point, though, about infrastructure for a community is spot on. Jamie had another observation.
Sorry, I just want to go back to this 15 or 25% payback that comes from developers. that is meant to go to the local community. As a Huish resident, I'm interested. Has that money been spent that Huish has got? Because is there I mean, presumably this 15 or 25% kickback should be spent for the benefit of the community at the time of the time that the development is happening. It should be for the benefit of the current community. So I still didn't understand, has that money been spent yet, or is it waiting to be spent?
The answer is that the community infrastructure levy only came in fairly recently. Before that, it was called S106 money, and that money was paid by the developer into an S106. That we were having developments in Huish Episcopi, quite a lot of that S106 money actually went towards the bigger towns like Yeovil. The theatre in Yeovil was one of the things that got up in one of the cases. But there are a number of pots of the 106 money, which as you heard earlier, the JCC have discussed, because that money it's allocated for community facilities, for this, that, and the other. That can only be spent with total agreement of Langport Town Councillors and Huish.
So it hasn't been spent.
The other difference.
Can I just? I was going to say, I can give you some examples. We gave money for Huish Episcopi's primary, from the 106 money, I'm talking about we collectively, to their library, their brand new library, the building of the new changing rooms up on the Memorial Field, which we have been waiting so long for, has got money from the 106 money that we've got. Other pots that we had, there's some money going to go to the cricket club.
We've allocated some to the new skate park.
Skate park. Some did go towards town hall.
Yes,
renovations.
for the lift to make us use the top thing. The difference between the Section 106 money and the SIL money, the SIL money just arrives bang, and the council can spend it any way they want. It's
No, they
new.
can't. No, they can't. That's wrong. We have to have a community discussion, so we have to ask the community how they want it spent.
The Section 106 money,
bit.
the Section 106 money arrives categorised on what we have to spend it on by the planning department. So we have no influence over that. Julie's quite right. Locally, we have influence over how the SIL money is spent. The Section 106 money is in these silos, so we have to make what we want to do fit what the planners thought we should want to do 8, 10, 12 years ago when the money was allocated. So it's much better, the SIL thing, and it's much better if we've got a neighbourhood plan, because then we get much more of it. I have to say, it's always been part of the plan of the team who've been working on the merger and working on everything else. The first thing we do as a merged council is write a neighbourhood plan for ourselves, exactly as Rupert suggests.
Gerald, you had a question. Does Gerald need a mic?
Probably not. Gerald Tucker, I'm the town clerk of Langport Town Council. In previous employments, I have been a neighbourhood planning officer, supporting numerous towns. In Glastonbury, I supported South Pelton, Wincanton, and others in their plan. And I concur with you, Chair, that there is enormous benefit to having a plan. I have also seen parishes that have been kicked in the teeth with the plan, and Ashcott being one. But I think as long as we're bold and strong, but that's not my question, that's a statement. My question is, please, for those who are opposed to the merger, in the last week, we keep a tally now in the office of the number of people who come or ring or speak to us about issues in Huish Episcopi. In the last week, I've dealt with 5. No point in passing them on, because it's simple questions, but we deal with them. My question to those who are opposed to the merger is, if it doesn't happen, this merger, what do you propose to do to ensure that the questions and queries from the Huish Episcopi residents are directed to Huish Episcopi?
I think there's a simple answer to that. They've obviously come to you because they think that you're the right person to ask it. they should actually have addressed that to Huish Episcopi, and we're more than happy to cope with any problem that any resident has within Huish Episcopi. We get sort of questions from time to time, and we would actually respond to them and sort them. So I wouldn't think there's any problems in that. I'm sorry that you had to do it.
It's not a problem, Chair.
But thank you very much for your work.
I'm emphasising the confusion. That's all.
Yeah, there is confusion. Yes, I agree.
Yeah, right. I believe most people come to Langport Town Hall to the clerk because they believe, and they honestly believe, they live in Langport anyway, because their address is usually Langport, or their postcode. Most people living here honestly believe they live in Langport. Unless you live out between the church and Eloy's, that's a little parish of Huish. The rest of them, all the new people coming here, they all say Langport, and that's where they believe, and that's why they contact Langport Town Hall. And also, it's very difficult to contact the clerk of Huish because she's very rarely available. So that's why they come to Langport.
Well, people talk to me all the time, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's true. You're in Langport, aren't you? Or in Huish, you know.
Interesting observation about the thousands of people that aren't in the room. How many of them know exactly which parish they live in? How many of them, they care about their council tax, but they care who's spending it in a way, locally? Do they know? And I think this is where, you know, if you had 500 responses, that is actually quite something for a community this size. When the vast majority of people are coming in, they're coming out, they're going to work, they're going in, they're coming and going. Their active engagement in the community isn't what it should be. It's what it could be, personally, but it isn't. So don't be completely hoodwinked by that, because people do not engage in community activities like most of us in the room would like them to. That's just a fact of life. Which is why, coming back to having an election, either for one council or for two, if nothing happens, make sure you have an election. I think there's only about 30 parishes in the whole of Somerset had an election at the last parish council elections. 30 or 34 or something like that. It's amazing. People just don't want to do it. Fresh observation, but yes, sir.
Only the fact that, unfortunately, I've got to go.
Well, thank you for coming.
I'm thinking I'm rude or I'm not enjoying this.
You're very lucky you can't say that and go. I'm going to wait to the end.
I'll love you and leave you.
No, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
You're not all going to get a round of applause with
Thank you.
Fresh observations from anybody. We're not going to stay here all night. Has anybody got a view? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Alison Patrick and I live in Pittsburgh. And I'm just asking a question.
Could you put your mic up? You've just been handed a mic and not using it.
I've been asked, you said at the beginning the positives and the negatives for living in Huish compared to Langport. And you mentioned you had a banksman who cut the grass on the roundabouts. Now, as far as I'm aware, we only have one roundabout and it's concreted over a tarmac. So what roundabout is he cutting grass on? And what other places does the banksman come and cut the hedges down or things like this? Because last year I had to go to Huish Episcopi Council twice to have the trees and all the rubbish thrown over the footpaths done. Wasn't on the first visit, I had to go back second. So with the positive bit being that this banks person would actually make footpaths for people to walk from Pisbury to Huish Episcopi School for the Sports Centre without walking in the road, and that's mothers with toddlers having to push the pram on the road. It has been done and it has been kept, but it took two visits to get it done.
Well, the chairman of the council scribbled it down on her notepad. So I'll let Huish Episcopi Parish Council, as is now, deal with that matter, because it's today's matter. And it's important, it's quite common. But these are things that used to be dealt with by people from the highways team, I know how old and decrepit I am because there used to be a great team of guys based in Somerton who just went around the old Langport Rural District Council area and kept it neat and tidy. And those people are not there now, so they have to be paid for by your own community. Which is sad, but true. But thank you for your, it's been scribbled down. She stuck it in front of me and I said, no, it's a huge problem, not mine. Another fresh observation. Okay? Yes.
Julia, you know, Landlord Commoners.
Absolutely.
Will that be amalgamated with Huish, or will it have to go to a vote?
Oh, we'd probably have to have a court link.
Yes, we'll have to have a link.
Yeah.
Because at the moment, it's only Langport residents.
Yeah, we have been talking about
We
it.
have to expand it, which is better for that.
But there's only a limited number of commoners allowed anyway. So, yeah.
We can get more people interested. Maybe we'll get more ideas on raising money to keep that land good.
For those of you who don't understand, the piece of land to the west of Langport is managed by a group called the Commoners.
Yeah.
And they basically buy the right, is it 20, 30 of you, buy the right to manage that piece of land on behalf of its owners, which is Langport Town Council.
No, that's incorrect.
Well, that was the judgment of the judge in 1970.
That's incorrect. We have commoners' rights, which are different from tenants. The other thing is, as well, that
Who's the freeholder?
The freeholder is Langport Town Council.
Because when the land registry came into being, somebody needed to have that registered, and so Langport Town Council did it.
I asked the question about who's
The commoners' rights have
freeholder
existed for centuries.
because the issue also crops up with other assets that each parish owns and they're managed and handled. That becomes quite a technical issue, but if there's an amalgamation, that's what they become part of the new authority. That's what happens. Okay. Yes.
One last say.
Yeah.
We can talk of engagement. There isn't much engagement, that's true. Yeah, sorry, I think there's engagement is information and communication. And if you tell people what you're doing, and you don't let them assume they're going to read the council minutes, which they don't. If you can spread that word out, tell them what you're doing, tell them the reasons for this, get them engaged, get them interested. Now, I'd like to think you'd have more people wanting to get on the council and not feeling like they don't even know there is a council or what it does.
Good advice. Okay, anybody got a fresh thought idea they'd like to put forward? If not, I will ask the panellists to just give a brief summing up of what they've heard this evening and what they think they might take away from this evening's conversations. No? I'll do in the same order as I asked them to introduce themselves and kick off. So, Julia, would you like to? It says a minute. I want Bang gone, but I am looking at the watch. And Ryan says, have we still got to be here at 9 o'clock? Really? And I have to
I agree too. All I will say is I reiterate, it's not to do with what Huish is going to get out of it and what Langport's going to get out of it if we have a joint council. It's up to a new council to decide if that's the case. So if you have issues, then stand. If you want to be part of a new council, then stand for election. Get yourself elected. And if you're in Huish and you're worried about whether it's going to skew towards Langport, make sure lots of people from Huish stand and also vote. Make sure you get the votes. You've got to make yourself known. But that's the way to do it. And that is the way, if you want to be a part of what's happening, then stand. And that's what you've got to do. And don't say it's young people can't do it, because most of us started as young people with families, growing up, and all the other responsibilities, full-time jobs and everything else. You can do it.
Your final thoughts.
My final thoughts, Well, thank you all for coming. I'm not totally convinced still that it's in the best interest currently with Huish Episcopi. I do think that we've missed loads of opportunities with the current councillors to well as what I call a team. Individually, I'm good. Together, we can be magnificent. And I don't think we've actually taken that on board. I think we've missed a lot of opportunities to discussing this. Instead of shouting it down, I think we should have had meetings where we could have actually thrashed out what we were going to sort of put to you guys to make you vote for a unity, a single council. I actually said on a number of occasions, what we needed for Huish Episcopi was an eye popper for them to say, this is a good idea. I haven't seen that idea, it's never been discussed, and I just think it's sad that we missed that opportunity.
Okay, thank you.
You initially asked what are the key concerns we've heard this evening. And the key concern I take from John Ryan is that we haven't communicated this well enough. The process has been followed. The current part unit at Somerset Council, which is represented here tonight. That consultation, which you do online, is over on the 8th of August, so you've got a chance, whichever side of the argument you find yourself, you've got a chance to put your thoughts in there, and I would urge you all to do that. But I'm still concerned that Ryan and John feel we haven't got the word out enough. We've done a bit. We've done public meetings, we've done, Arvin and I have been doing our Chuckle Brothers videos, we've been doing various bits and bobs, but if that's not enough, I'm sorry about that. But I do think, as far as the published process, we've followed that. I remain convinced that this area will be best governed by one parish for this one community, and I hope we've managed to persuade some of you of that this evening. But thank you very, very much for coming to this. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Ryan, you've heard parish and town councillors, very experienced parish and town councillors putting their case. You've heard them answer some of the questions. What would be your takeaway from this evening?
Well, again, like the others, I want to thank everyone for coming. So it's good that we all get to talk about some of these things. I mean, mainly, to agree with Keith, it just feels like, as we've echoed, not enough has got out to the people that aren't here tonight. The people that aren't more politically active, we're here, we're talking about it. There's a bunch of people who will be concerned with increased costs that aren't here. And really, it's got to be like leafleting or a referendum. And if we all say yes, brilliant. Like, I've got no issue, it's the process I've got the issue with. And it feels still like some of those fundamental first questions weren't answered. A little better tonight, perhaps. But there's a huge portion of us that aren't here. So I think that's the main thing, we've got to get out to more people.
Okay. I know social media isn't everything, and it does almost exile some people that choose not to or are not technically minded, but I follow Eli's Facebook page, and last week I think the consultation was put out there. You know, if you want to see the consultation, here it is and go for it. And I think it's upon all of you to tell as many people in your network what might be happening. You don't have to lead them one way or the other, you may choose to, but it's nice to keep the debate open. And encourage them to get involved in the process that has been laid down. No process is perfect, in my view, and this one may not be perfect for everybody, but it is the process and the time frame you have. And you've got a month and 4 days, a month and 5 days to make a view, take a view, and to tell the consultation process what you think. I hope this evening you found enlightening. Some of you might have learned new things. Some of you might have thought, oh God, here we go again. I hope not too much. I've sort of thoroughly enjoyed listening to the two communities putting their cases and asking some very articulate questions. So thank you for inviting me to part of it. But I'd like you to show your appreciation to our speakers, Sean, Julia, Ryan, and John next to me.
Thank you, Rupert, for being here.
Thank you, Rupert.